Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes.
Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Bhagavan Swapadakam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Vijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwahari Ramani Hari Priya Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhudayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhagavad Srimad Bhagavatam Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna everyone, good morning. So thank you so much for coming for the morning class. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from canto number 7, chapter number 9, and we're reading 3 to 5. Am I correct? Yeah. All right. So I'll just read 3 and 4 myself, and then 5 we can do responsively. Praradam prayashamasha brahma vasthitamantike tata prashammayopehi svapitre kupitam prabhum. Thereafter Lord Brahma requested Prahlad Maharaj, who was standing very near him, "My dear son, Lord Nrsimhadev is extremely angry at your demoniac father. Please go forward and appease the Lord." Tatheti shanake rajan mahabhagavator bhaka upaitya bhuvikayena nanama vitratanjali. Nardmani continued, O king, although the exalted devotee Prahlad Maharaj was only a little boy, he accepted Lord Brahma's words. He gradually proceeded toward Lord Nrsingadev and fell down to offer his respectful obeisances with folded hands. So we can do this one together responsibly. Swapadamule patitam tamarbhakam Vilokya deva kripaya paripluta Uthapya tachishni adhadhat karambujam Kalahi vitrashta dhyam krita bhayam Swapadamule patitam tamarbhakam Vilokya deva kripaya paripluta Uthapya tachishni adadhat karambujam Kalahi vitrashta dhyam krita bhayam
Swapadamule patitam tamarbhakam
Tongue twister this one.
Swapadamule patitam tamarbhakam Vilokya deva kripaya paripluta Uthapya tachishni adadhat karambujam Kalahi vitrashta dhyam krita bhayam
Sorry, it's a bit smaller. Do you want me to make it bigger?
Yeah, that was why I messed up.
Explains it. Ladies?
Swapadamule patitam tamarbhakam Vilokya deva kripaya paripluta
Uthapya tachishni adhadhat karambujam
Kalahi vitrashta dhyam krita bhayam
Swapadamule at his lotus feet Patitam fallen Tam him Prahlad Maharaj Ardhabhakam only a little boy Vilokya seeing Deva Lord Nrsingadev Kripaya out of his clauseless mercy Paripluta very much afflicted in ecstasy Uthapya raising Tachishni on his head Adadhat place Karambujam his lotus hand Kala ahi of the deadly snake of time which can cause immediate death Vitrashta afraid Dhyam to all of those whose minds Krita abhayam which causes fearlessness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Shilesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. When Lord Nrsingadev saw the small boy Prahlad Maharaj prostrated at the soles of his lotus feet, he became most ecstatic in affection toward his devotee. Raising Prahlad, the Lord placed his lotus hand upon the boy's head, because his hand is always ready to create fearlessness in all of his devotees. Purport. The necessities of the material world are four: ahara, nidra, bhaya, and metuna: eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. In this material world, everyone is in fearful consciousness, sada samudvigna dhyam, and the only means to make everyone fearless is Krishna consciousness. When Lord Nrsimhadev appeared, all of the devotees became fearless. The devotees' hope of becoming fearless is to chant the holy name of Lord Nrsimhadev. Yato yato yami tato nishimha. Wherever we go, we must always think of Lord Nrsimhadev. Thus there will be no fear for the devotee of the Lord. Nrsimhadev Bhagavan Ki. So, I'll just write a few things here as we go by. So, we are in the Bhagavatam, so it's always good to kind of just orientate ourselves as to where we are in the Bhagavatam. So it's mentioned that just as there are 5 topics in the Bhagavad Gita, so in the Bhagavatam there are 10 topics. And different commentators say different things. Some say that all topics are in all cantos. Sridhar Swami, who's the original commentator on the Bhagavatam, he says every canto has a specific focus. So the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam: Atra sargo visargascha stanam poshanamutaya manvantareshanu katha nirodha muktir ashraya. These are the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam. So the way he categorizes it is he says that the first topic, Atra, beginning with Sarga. Sarga means primary creation. He says that is primarily talked about in Canto 3. Secondary creation, we know the Canto 4 is entitled Creation of the Fourth Order. So it talks about Brahma, Brahma's children, and then how the population then goes from there. So that's further, secondary creation. Then the 5th canto is all about the planets, the hellish planets. Sthanam. Sthanam means where you play, where you stay. It's interesting, if you look at the English language, like all the words that begin with ST, tell me some words. Stop, stay, stand, stationary. Can you see they all have a sense of being in one place? Isn't it? Stop, stand, stay. So stick. It's also there. But it's interesting. So stan, this ST has a sense of where are you situated. So sthanam. Canto number 6, sthanam poshanam. That just makes me think of like a witch that has a potion. Anyway. It's my mind. Poshanam means protection. Because in that canto we hear about how Ajamil is protected, how Chitraketu is protected, Vritrasura, and so on and so forth. I'll come back to 7 in a second because that's where we are. 8 is Manvantara, because the 8th canto is like a day in the life of Manu. A day in the life of Brahma, because in Brahma's lifetime there are 14 Manus, so it goes through like a day in the life of Brahma. So anyway, that's that. 9 is Ishanu Katha. Sridhar Swami says, Isha means the Lord and Katha means talks of the Lord. So there you find different talks of incarnations, Ram, Parshuram, so on and so forth. 10, Sridhar Swami says, is Ashraya, because that's the goal of it all. Krishna, he's the supreme shelter, he's just beautiful. 11 is Mukti, liberation, because 11th canto is basically 80% the conversation between Krishna and Uddhava. And Krishna is preparing Uddhav to kind of leave the world, take sannyas, and basically liberate himself from all influence. And 12 is Nirodha, which means annihilation, because it's all about the annihilation of the universe. We hear about Markandeya Rishi, but it's all about how Parikshit ultimately gets annihilated, because that's it, time is up. So then what is 1 and 2? According to Sridhar Swami, he says 1 is adhikar. Because in the first canto you hear 3 conversations between Sutta and the sages, between Sukadeva and Parikshit, and between Narada and Vyas. And through these 3 conversations you actually understand what is the adhikar, or the qualification of someone who's supposed to speak Bhagavatam, and what is the qualification of someone who can hear Bhagavatam. So there's no point continuing on with Bhagavatam if you don't know who to hear from and how to hear from that person. And therefore he says logically the Bhagavatam begins with adhikar. And he says canto number 2 is all about sadhana, because that's where the conversation begins between Parikshit and Sukadev. And the very first question that Parikshit asks Sukadev is, what should I do? What's the duty of a dying person? And Sukadev says, you got to connect. You got to connect with the Supreme Lord. And so sadhana is the means of connection. So basically Bhagavatam finishes in the first 3 chapters of the second canto. It's like, it's done. Sukadev asked this question, Parikshit asked this question to Sukadev Goswami, and if you look, the 3rd chapter of the second canto is pure devotional service, the change in heart. So he already comes to the conclusion. So Parikshit is looking at his watch, he's like, no, I got another 7 days here to go, like I need to keep hearing. So he thinks, quick, ask a question, keep the guy talking, So actually, the commentators say that the Bhagavatam finishes actually by the 3rd chapter of the second canto. But because Parikshit's got 7 more days, he asks more questions. Keep it going. So then what is canto number 7, which we're reading now? What is that all about? And that's a very interesting one. Anyone know?
Uti.
Uti. Very good. Uti. Uti is an interesting word. Uti means the creative impetus. So basically this canto talks about why everything is created. It was interesting. I was thinking the other day, I was at the airport and I was just watching these kids kind of messing around at the airport. And I was thinking, why can't life just stay like being kids for your whole life? So I was kind of reflecting on that point. Because it's so nice, isn't it? Like kids, they just run around, there's not a care in the world. It's all very nice, It's like life is play and play is life, So I was thinking, why can't we just remain childlike? Anyone want to have a guess? What happens? Something happens which complicates everything and which changes everything.
Puberty?
Puberty. Yeah, exactly. Time, yeah. But with time, what happens is puberty, actually. You got it right. He's a brahmachari, he doesn't know these things. He's eternally a Kumara. He's beyond all these things. But puberty changes everything, isn't it? The moment the birds and the bees and the moment that attraction comes, then material desires, material attachments, that begins to trigger everything. Therefore the Bhagavatam says, as soon as that comes, ato griha kshetra sutapta vitir janasya moho yamaham mameti. Then you have to do so many things. Then you have to build, you have to create, you need security, you need... So that lust, that material desire is the creative impetus. So why is the 7th canto called the creative impetus? Because Hiranyakashipu basically personifies it. I mean, his name means gold cushions. You can see what's on his mind. So therefore, material desires of Hiranyakashipu are the personification of the creative impetus. So this is basically the Bhagavatam, and we're in the 7th canto. I'm just showing you this to see, it's very interesting how the Bhagavatam is actually incredibly logical in how it's actually presented. Actually, when we read Shastra, sometimes we read it and we just kind of think like, okay, where's this going? Like you read the Gita and it feels like it's going but it's actually a very, very deliberate strategy to impart knowledge. So anyway, so that's there. So now we're in the 7th canto and we're hearing about Hiranyakashipu, about Prahlad. And Nrsimhadev is angry. It's actually said that the 3 most powerful emotions in the world are love, fear, and anger. It said these are the most powerful emotions in the world, because if you see, based on these emotions, anyone can do anything. And sometimes we do the most irrational things, sometimes we do the most extraordinary things, sometimes we do the most selfish things, the most selfless things. These are the most powerful emotions in the world, and therefore, if you look in this canto, Prahlad is kind of representing that love. Hiranyakashipu is like the embodiment of fear, and Nrsimhadev is the... Oh, sorry, how's it gone? No signal detected.
Starting with live.
Just try fiddling with the HDMI there and in the TV.
Okay, there, I got it. There you are. Okay. I don't know why it's like that. Anyway, you can see it, right? It's big enough, right? So in this particular section of the 7th canto, Nrsimhadev is extremely angry. This is also like a way to express love. Sometimes people are baffled by, that picture of Nrsimhadev, like, it's like we have schools coming in to the manor. So it's like, it's all very nice, it's all very peaceful, it's all very serene and beautiful, and swings and flower gardens and,
Swings.
And then you come to the side of the altar and there's this picture. So Godruma Prabhu, he was once taking someone on a tour and they were like, they looked at everything, this is beautiful. He goes, what is this? He goes, this is what happened to the last person who refused to give a donation. So it's like, it's interesting when Prabhupada saw that picture actually, the devotee who painted it, I've met the devotee who painted that original picture, and they showed the picture to Prabhupada of Nrsimhadev ripping up Hiranyakashipu, and Prabhupada looked at it and he said, good. More blood. More blood. Because of more blood. It's like, so it's very, Nrsimhadev is angry. This part of the Bhagavatam is like the height of Nrsimhadev's anger. Is Nrsimhadev has come out of the pillar. This is Stanu Nrsimha, Ugra Nrsimha. Nrsimhadev, as you know, has many different moods. So when Nrsimhadev comes out of the pillar and he's fresh with that rage, that Ugra, what we call Stanu Nrsimha, that's said to be the most ferocious form. So in Sridham Mayapur, we just came back from Mayapur, they're opening the Nrsimhadev temple now. The form of Nrsimhadev in Mayapur is Stanu Nrsimha. It's not just Ugra Nrsimha. Ugra Nrsimha is Nrsimha who's ferocious, but Stanu Nrsimha is when he's at the height of his ferocity, his anger. So it's actually Atma Tattva Prabhu who commissioned that deity when he went to South India, and he told the Stapati that, we want this deity. He goes like, no one worships this. This deity is ferocious. It's dangerous. Like, no one goes. He goes, haven't you read the Bhagavatam? He said, no one's going to Nrsimhadev at this time. The only one is Prahlad. No one else can go. He's too angry. And then he was so the sculptor was inquiring, like, why do you want this form? He said, no, for protection. He said, where are you going to take this form? He said, Sridham Mayapur. And then the sculptor said, Sridham Mayapur? He said, yes. He said, then I can make it. Because he says what happens is that Nrsimhadev takes on the mood of the presiding deity of the Dham. He says, normally this deity is too ferocious, you can't worship it. But because Mayapur Dham is Audarya, it's the mood of Lord Chaitanya, is very, very magnanimous, very merciful. He goes, so Nrsimhadev will kind of take it down a few notches there, and it will be okay. And that's actually how the Nrsimhadev deity actually came to Sridham Mayapur. So here, in this verse we're reading, Nrsimhadev is like angry like anything. And no one's going forward, so everyone understands there's only one person who can go forward, and that's Prahlad. Only Prahlad is the one who can pacify the Supreme Lord. And it's said here in this verse that as Prahlad comes forward, Lord Nrsimhadev puts his hand on Prahlad, the same hand which ripped up Hiranyakashipu, that same hand, the violent, that same hand is a very loving hand, and that loving hand goes on Prahlad's head. And it said that as soon as Prahlad, his head is touched by Nrsimhadev's hand, he becomes immediately fearless. So fearless, to become fearless, what will it take to become fearless? It's interesting, Jiva Goswami, when he analyzes the Bhagavad Gita, he says that the very first instruction of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is in 2.11, and he says the very final instruction of Gita, Krishna, is 1866. And he says, according to Jiva Goswami, this is very, very telling. Because what is 2.11? Asocyan anvasochastvam pragyavadamscha bhashashe gatasun agatasumscha nanu sochanti pandita. Na anu sochanti. What does Krishna say to Arjun? Don't lament, don't fear, don't be in anxiety, don't be stressed out. And what's the final thing that Krishna says in the Gita? Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam saranam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. He says the very, very final instruction of Krishna uses the very same word. Socha, anxiety, lamentation, fear, bewilderment. Krishna says, don't fear. Do not fear. And Jiva Goswami says this is very, very important, because what it basically signifies is that the human condition is basically one of fear. Every human being is fearful. It's almost like we're walking, you know, like they used to have those cartoons where the guy's walking around, everything's sunny, but there's like a cloud over them which is raining, and it just follows them wherever they go. So everyone's kind of, some people like that. So it's kind of like that. We're kind of walking around in the world, and there's like, we're overshadowed by fear. We're fearful of what people think about us. We're fearful of failing. We're fearful about what we did in the past. We're fearful about the future. When we're happy, we fear it will end. When we're unhappy, we fear it will never end. It's just like we're constantly overcome by fear. Therefore, it's very interesting when they asked Prabhupada, when you chant Hare Krishna, what do you feel? And he said, I feel no fear. It's interesting that he answered that, because that's the basic consciousness of every single living entity. And so this fear is very, very much within us. And it's interesting because when you read this section of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada is saying that the only way to become fearless is to meditate on the Lord. And if you look at Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad, then what it is if you look at them very closely, they represent the two approaches to becoming fearless. Because how does Hiranyakashipu try to become fearless? He asks for boons from Brahma. I don't want to die in the night or the day. Done. I don't want to die outside or inside. Done. I don't want to die in the air or on the ground. Done. I don't want to die by any man or any animal. Done. There's probably more. I can't remember all of them now. But he was smart. He was basically covering all the bases. And by all of the boons, what he was basically trying to do is cover all the eventualities and control the external world and in that way overcome his fear. And so Hiranyakashipu represents one who tries to overcome fear by the physical, mental, and intellectual pursuits. And therefore, Hiranyakashipu's basic mentality is he sees matter in spirit. He can't see spirit anywhere. Everything he sees as material, and therefore everything he approaches in a material way. And the net result of it is he remains fearful. Whereas what does Prahlad do? Prahlad, his approach to becoming fearless is to follow Narad's instructions. Remember, Narada instructed Kayadu while Prahlad was in the womb, and therefore Prahlad heard all of those instructions. And therefore Narad's instructions, Narada, what does the word Narada mean? Nara means Narayan, and Da means to give. So by following Narada's instructions, he gives you Krishna, he gives you Narayan. And therefore, Prahlad represents one who tries to approach fearlessness by developing spiritual consciousness. And by developing spiritual consciousness, you see spirit in matter. In other words, Hiranyakashipu can't see Krishna anywhere. Prahlad, he can see Krishna everywhere, because he sees spirit everywhere. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pasyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. And therefore, Prahlad becomes fearless. These are basically the two approaches to trying to become fearless in the world. Some people try to do it through the Hiranyakashipu mentality. My car might break down, so let me get cover. My money might go, so let me have an extra ISA savings bank account. Someone might burgle my house, so let me put an alarm. The appliance that I buy may break down, so let me get a warranty. I'm not saying any of these things are bad, by the way. But can you see what the basic approach of the world is to try to control everything outside of us, and by doing that, what people are actually trying to do is become fearless, because they know the world is volatile. Anything could happen. Therefore, let me try and control it as much as possible. But no matter what you do, you can't control it. Because just as Hiranyakashipu thought he covered all the bases, and then Nishingadev just came and just circumvented it all and killed him. No matter what you do in the world to create security, something will happen to circumvent all of it. And Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukha Dosh Anudarshanam. Disease, old age, death will ultimately come. Whereas Prahlad, the way that he becomes fearless is through his consciousness. And therefore, the only real way to become fearless is when you're able to see Krishna everywhere. In other words, you have to become Krishna conscious. Like, for example, they asked Prahlad, were you not scared when they gave you poison? And Prahlad said, why? Vishnu is my father. And when the demons and demigods churned the milk ocean, then Lakshmi came out of that ocean. And then later on, poison also came from that ocean. That means poison and Lakshmi are brother and sister. And Lakshmi is the consort of Vishnu, and Vishnu is my father. That means poison is my uncle. And do you think if I have contact with my uncle, he'll kill me? They said, Prahlad, were you not afraid when they put you in fire? Prahlad said, why? My father is Vishnu. And Yagyavai, Vishnu. The fire represents the mouth of Vishnu. And so if you put me in the mouth of my father, do you think he'll kill me? They said, but Prahlad, were you not scared when they put you in a pit of snakes? Prahlad said, my father is Vishnu. And Vishnu rests on the bed of Anantashesh. And Anantashesh is the master of all the snakes. And therefore the snakes are the servant of my father. And therefore if you put me in the association of the servant of my father, do you think they'll do anything to me? They said, Prahlad, were you not scared when they threw you off a cliff? Prahlad said, my father is Vishnu. And as Vishnu, he takes different forms, and he came as Varahadev. And when the Lord came as Varahadev, then he lifted the earth from the nether regions, and by contact of the Lord with earth, Bhaumasura came about. In other words, the Lord and earth had a baby together. That means the earth becomes the Lord's consort. So when they threw me off the cliff, if they throw me into the lap of my mother, do you think anything will happen? Pretty amazing. That's actually how you become fearless. There's no other way to become fearless in this world. One has to simply detect that Krishna is everywhere. And Krishna has got my back. And when one knows that, therefore Prabhupada says, Ito nishingha parato nishingho yato yato yami tato nishingha. Wherever I look, in this direction, that direction, Nishingadev is there. So why do I need to be fearful about anything? And so in this way, the Bhagavatam is systematically teaching us how to do the very thing that will allow us to really live life. This evening we got a program at Cardiff, Life Beyond Fear. It's interesting that we have this verse in the morning. Maybe they should have all just come to the Bhagavatam to repeat myself again. But how do you actually live life? Most people are not living life because they're just hijacked by fear. So only when one develops this spiritual consciousness do they transcend fear. And when you transcend fear, then you can actually relish life. Otherwise, we're never really relishing life because we're always hijacked by so many negative emotions, feelings, thoughts, and apprehensions. And so this is the great boon and opportunity of the Bhagavatam to actually bring us to this kind of level of fearlessness. So Prabhupada says, in this material world, everyone is in fearful consciousness, and the only means to make everyone fearless is Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. So maybe I'll stop there, just see whether there may be any thoughts, or if anyone has any questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for a nice class. I just wondered, you mentioned about learning to detect Krishna everywhere, and then in that way we can become fearless.
But there's always a but.
Unfortunately for myself, but it's easy to say it when things have a certain threshold. And then all of a sudden things are going a lot more difficult, or if you develop like a terminal illness, or if something really difficult happens, then learning to detect Krishna in that becomes more of a challenge. So I'm just wondering how do we
I'm with you. Yeah, the heat rises. Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book a very profound statement. One's advancement can be understood by their ability to tolerate provoking situations. Think about that for a second. One's advancement is measured by their ability to tolerate provoking situations. As one becomes more and more advanced, their ability to tolerate the provocations, the unpredictability, the uncertainty of the world gets greater and greater. And therefore you see that it's not you have it or you don't. We just have it at different grades. And what Krishna basically does is over our life, he will begin to turn up the heat more and more. And that turning up the heat is not meant to burn us, but it's meant to elevate us beyond all of the heat. So it's almost like David Mita Maharaj said it's like a dog chasing you, like and you're running away from this dog, and it seems like you're perpetually running away, and the dog chases you all the way back to Godhead. So it's almost like that. What happens is that gradually in life, what will happen is that Krishna will begin turning up the heat more and more. And then Krishna says, when I really turn up the heat, Yashyaham unugranami harishe tadhanam shane tato dhanam tyajantasya swajana dukadukitam. When I really turn up the heat, then I take away everything. That's the special mercy. It's interesting, I travel in West Africa, and in West Africa they have prosperity churches. So what, as a standard part of the Sunday program, is at the end of the lecture, there's testimonies. So people come to the front, like, and I believed in Jesus, and my back problems got solved. And I believed in Jesus, and I immediately got a promotion at work. And I was thinking, if this was at Hare Krishna, they'd be like, and I worship Krishna, and I lost everything. I worship Krishna, and everyone left me. That would be like that's the real mercy, to take everything away. So for the sweetness of the sugar cane to come out, it has to be crushed. For the fragrance of the sandalwood to come about, it has to be rubbed. For the effulgence of the gold to manifest itself fully, it has to be boiled. Are you ready to be rubbed, crushed, and boiled?
I don't think I have a choice.
You don't have a choice, yeah, exactly. So it's interesting actually in this, when Prabhupada talks about Prahlad in his morning walks, then he mentions this term acid test. He said Prahlad received the acid test. I don't know, I'm not really a scientist, but as I understand, the acid test means that if you put a metal in acid and it doesn't rust, am I right? Then it means it's valuable. Am I right?
He's a scientist. Yeah.
What's the etymology of acid test? That's my understanding, that when you put a metal in contact with acid and nothing happens to it, you can understand it's a valuable metal. Anyway, someone can check it on. That's my understanding of it. So, but what do we do practically when those challenges come? That's why we need Vaishnavas. Because you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. So then we need friends. Then we need loving devotees who don't just tell you the philosophy, but who also give you their love. And then with the love of the devotees, with their kindness, not just their lectures, but their support, their own example of devotion, and their care, then it becomes all a little bit easier to digest. So we know the philosophy, but we also need a lot of love in our life. We all need friends. Even sannyasis need friends. That's why I got Gopal in my life. Yeah. Everyone needs
We love you,
friends. Everyone needs friends. Otherwise, like Kaviraj Goswami said, Durgame patimendhasya skalat pada gate. My path is very difficult. I'm slipping again and again. But the stick of the mercy of the Vaishnavas is holding me up. So, yeah. I don't know, these were some thoughts. I don't know, does that help or
No,
not
it
really?
does, yeah, I'll make sure
No,
I
it doesn't.
contemplate.
Concentrate the rest of your life. Yeah, it's hard, huh? It's not so easy. We're in it together. Anyone else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you for class. I was just wondering how to think of Krishna more throughout our day, because sometimes all I think about is anything but Krishna, and things like I need to do or services. So I was wondering, what can we do to like actively think of Krishna more?
Thank you so much. When we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is we connect with our deepest identity. The first thing when we wake up in the morning, we meditate on the fact I have nothing to do with this world. The identity that you begin with in the morning, if you cement that identity, then what happens is you're much more likely during the day to live with that identity. Therefore, the morning program is not just a ritual, it's not just like a tick box exercise, but it's an opportunity to connect with your deepest identity. And so thinking about Krishna during the day is very much dependent on how you orientate your intention as you rise to begin functioning with this world. And so I would say the first thing is to have a very, very strong morning program. Like if I think about, for me, like the best thing about living at the temple for, whatever it is, 25 years or whatever, I mean, hands down is the morning program. I mean, it's just so powerful. It's just so powerful to begin the day and actually chant. I mean, I'm also, japa is a bit flaky sometimes, but for the most part, to be able to just really connect with our identity beyond this world. Your vision throughout the day changes. So I would say that's the first thing. Then during the day, just keep the vibration going, like here, try to connect with the philosophy in the things that you observe, try to make the connections. Prabhupada was so good like that, like he could just walk around and he'd see something and there'd be a spiritual lesson from it, Prabhupada was walking in Russell Square and there were all these bird droppings, so Prabhupada stopped and goes, what is the meaning of this? There's bird droppings, like. Someone was looking for like a secret sign in the bird droppings or something, and Prabhupada just looked at everyone and he goes, even the birds. Prabhupada, when he said birds, he used to say like birds. He said, even the birds become attached to their home. That was his analysis of the bird droppings. That all these bird droppings are there, meaning that the birds have been here for weeks, just basically passing stool. So his point was that even the birds get attached to like a tree branch. How attachment is so strong, become attached. It's interesting, even in Hare Krishna temple rooms, everyone has their spot in the temple room. Have you noticed? Everyone, you get attached. You get attached to... it's so easy to get attached.
We're just going to eat after breakfast.
It's being ejected from your attachments. In the manner, we at one point we took out all the beds in the ashram because it was like no one should get attached to a bed. So at one point we just like had this day where we actually we threw all the beds literally out of the window. Like we broke them and threw them all out. But then we just all got attached to a floor space. Like I took this space near the bookshelf, and I was like, "This is my spot. Ain't no one taking my spot." Because my theory was that if I sleep by these books all night, then magically all the knowledge is going to go in. That was my...
Looks like it
So,
I think it worked.
so I used to sleep by the bookshelf. It was a good spot actually. There was a radio there as well. It's pretty nice. Anyway, how did I get onto that? Yeah, so Prabhupada said even the birds get attached. It's amazing, Prabhupada. Like, he just made all these connections. Like Mukunda Maharaj went to the bank and he came back and Prabhupada said, "Did you bank?" He said, "Yeah, I banked it." This was in London. And Prabhupada said, "Did they give you a receipt?" And he said, like, "No, they didn't give me a receipt." Prabhupada said, "They didn't give you a receipt?" He said, "No." Prabhupada said, "This signifies the end of the British Empire." It's like, what? And Prabhupada's logic was that the British were only a very small number, but they were able to create an empire all over the world because of organization. They were like super organized, super bureaucratic, like. So Prabhupada said, they didn't even give you a receipt. That means they're slacking in their organization. That means it's all over now. So it's interesting, as you become more, you begin to see all of these things like that you don't normally see. So yeah, I think good morning program, keep the vibration going, try to make connections, try to learn from everything around you, and have good devotees around you, and yeah, eventually Krishna will steal your mind. Manohara. It's one of Krishna's names. You'll be like, I can't get this guy out of my mind. One commentator says the gopis cannot be blamed that they ran away from home to meet Krishna. They cannot be blamed for their acts because the five senses are led by the mind. But the mind of the gopis has been stolen by Krishna. So now they cannot be held responsible for anything that their senses do. That's a good legal argument in the defense of the gopis. You can't blame them. Krishna has stolen the mind. Radha. It's interesting. Radha. Raga Dhavati. That's what the name Radha means. Rag means attachment and Dhavati means to run. So one meaning of Radha's name is she who is running after her object of attachment. So one day may the mind run after Krishna. Anyway, we're praying. I don't know how we're doing on time because everyone also has to go out, right? If there's one last question, if anyone wants.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, thank you. So when you become fearless, what's the balance of becoming stone-hearted as well? Because I think if someone is completely fearless, they're also going to be quite hard-hearted, and then that means they also don't really, they stop to care.
No, actually the real way to become fearless is to become filled with love. The person who tries to become fearless and becomes hard-hearted, they haven't actually become fearless. All they're doing is they're dulling their emotions. So it's like fearlessness doesn't mean you don't have any emotions, but it means all of your emotions have been invested in Krishna. And if all your emotions are invested in Krishna, there's no need to be fearful. Therefore, bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshata shadi shadapetasya viparyayo smriti tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayakayesham gurudeva tatma. The 11th canto actually defines where fear comes from. And fear comes why? Bhayam dvitiya. Dvitiya means you begin to see a second reality. There's only one reality. This world is not real. There's only one reality, and that reality is Krishna in the spiritual world. But Dvitiya, as soon as you begin to see a second reality, Ishadapetasya, and you become removed from your relationship with Isha, Krishna, then tanmayayato, then Maya comes and covers you. And then bhayam, then fear comes. That's the basic progression. Step number 1, you see another reality. Step number 2, you turn away from Krishna. Number 3, you become overcome by Maya. Number 4, you're embroiled in fearfulness. Therefore, to become fearless doesn't mean you dull your emotions, but it means you stop seeing a second reality. You only see one reality. Does that make sense? Is that like, it's not theoretical, right? It makes sense. It's practical. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.